How's it going, guys? This is Duke Desperado here, bringing you guys a new deck profile for the March 2020 format. Today we got ourselves Mekk Knight Invoked. So, a little bit about this deck. Currently, it is one of the better decks of the format, in my opinion. A lot of people are mixing Invoked with Shaddolls. I just prefer the Mekk Knight variant because that fits more my playstyle, which is go second, break boards, and OTK the opponent before they can basically gain advantage off of you. So, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you guys leave a like, subscribe, share this video with a friend. And without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into the deck profile. Starting off with our 3 copies of Alistair the Invoker. Basically, what Alistair does upon normal summon is it's going to add invocation straight from your deck to your hand, and then you can discard it from your hand to target one of your fusion monsters on board, and that's going to gain 1,000 attack. So if you need to beat over something that's slightly bigger than one of your invoked monsters, and you have the Alistair in hand and you want to keep your fusion on board, you just discard the Alistair, and then you get to basically punch over that monster. So, the card has a lot of utility in this deck. It's the heart and soul, basically. If you don't open a way to get to Alistair, you've essentially bricked. And, yeah. And then you're going second engine, you have your Mekk Knights. The way that all the Mekk Knights work is if there are 2 or more cards in the same column, then you can special summon them from your hand to that column, and they all gain effects based on cards in that column. So Mekk Knight Purple Nightfall. It's a quick effect that you need to worry about is you basically get to target a Mekk Knight. It's going to banish itself until the end of... It's going to banish itself into your next standby phase, and then you get to search a Mekk Knight straight from your deck. So if you have anything that... Say your opponent has like a mind control, and they are going to try to take over your purple. You're going to just use purple's effect, targeting himself. Because of how chain links work, they resolve in reverse order. Purple Nightfall will banish itself, and then it's going to search a Mekk Knight, thus making their mind control basically useless. Then you got 2 copies of Blue Sky. What Blue Sky does is if there are 2 or more cards in the same column, they special summon itself, and then you get to search Mekk Knights from your deck based on the number of cards your opponent controls in that column. So say they have 1 card in that column, you get to search a Mekk Knight. If they have 2 cards in that column, you get to search 2 Mekk Knights. If they have 3, well, they may as well scoop it up, because if you search 3 Mekk Knights and you get all 3 of them on the board, they've essentially lost, because all the Mekk Knights are just that big. 1 copy of Indigo Eclipse, because it helps you rearrange your cards and columns. So, say you have the blue in 1 column, and you have another Mekk Knight in your hand, and you have another column that is eligible to summon a Mekk Knight, you just summon the Indigo into that column, use Indigo's effect to either move it or your copy of blue, move it to a different column, and then you get to special summon another Mekk Knight into that column. For your other Mekk Knights, for utility, we have Red Moon and Yellow Star. I only run 1 of each, but they basically do the same thing, except one does monsters, this one does spells and traps. Basically, you get to banish a Mekk Knight from your graveyard, and then you get to pop a monster off of Red Moon, and then you pop a spell and trap off of Yellow, giving you more further utility, and as well as bigger monsters to swing with for game. Then I got 2 copies of Gizmek Kaku. Basically, if there's a monster in the extra deck zone, you get to special summon this thing for free. And then you get to basically absorb a monster from the extra monster zone, if you want. That's basically its utility. It's like a 1,000 Eyes Restrict for the extra monster zone, as well as a 2,700 body. That's actually it for all your main beaters. You have a bunch of hand traps in here. I run 6 hand traps, 3 droll, basically to stop anything from searching more than once. Then I got 3 copies of Gamma. Basically, what Gamma is going to do is it's going to stop a monster effect while you control no monsters. However, we do play the copy of Cyframe Lord Lambda, which will allow us to activate Gamma from our hand and still have monsters on board. So in case we have to go first and we open the Gamma and we have a going first board, we just make the Lambda, sit on the Gamma, and then pass our turn. I also run the 1 copy of Driver because this thing special summons Driver. However, they do get banished during the end phase. That's actually it for the monsters. Moving on to spells, we got 3 copies of Magical Meltdown. One of the best field spells in the game, in my opinion. It searches Alistair upon activation, and that basically makes it to where all your fusion spells cannot be negated or interrupted by anything. So it just makes Invocation that much stronger. I also run the 1 copy of Terraforming because an additional copy of Alistair is just really great. And then we got 3 copies of Invocation. I mainly play 3 because I run Pot of Desires in here. You realistically don't need 3, but I run it just because of Pot of Desires, and you always want to have access to this card. So it basically lets you fusion summon from your hand, or if you're summoning an invoked fusion monster, you get to use stuff from your field and either player's graveyard. So to make a Mekaba, it's simple. You just open up the Alistair, search out your invocation, and then you summon a Mekk Knight, or you use an opponent's monster in their graveyard, and then you make your Mekaba or any other invoked fusion monster, so long as you meet their criteria. Because we want our searches to go off, we run 3 copies of Called by the Grave. Because this is also a going second build, we run 3 copies of Instant Fusion for Thousand Eyes Restrict, as well as Raijin or Kaliga if we need to. And then to absorb our opponent's monsters, we got 2 copies of Mind Control. And then we got 2 copies of Pot of Desires to run off our spells. Funny thing with the Mekk Knights, it doesn't matter what cards are in the column, so long as there are 2 or more cards. So say you open up your Mind Control in a Mekk Knight, and there's a card in an opponent's column, you just set the Mind Control in the same column as the opponent's card, then you get to special summon your Mekk Knight. And then, since this isn't a quick play spell, you can activate the Mind Control straight from your spell and trap zone. So, then the last 3 cards in the deck, 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Basically a win button at this point. If your opponent establishes a board and doesn't have a spell or trap negate, Evenly Matched basically just says, hey, you overextended, I win. So that's actually it for the main deck. Moving on to the 15 card extra deck. Our first card is the 1 copy of Invoked Kaliga. Basically what Kaliga does is if the opponent activates a monster effect, for the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot activate any more monster effects. And then it also has like a Dark Door effect where only 1 monster can attack during the battle phase of each turn. Next up, we run our 1 copy of Invoked Raijin because, well, 1, we have the Droll to banish worst case scenario to make it, and then it's also an instant fusion target. 1 copy of Purgatrio because we run the Salamangreat Amirage in our extra deck to make it. Basically, it's an OTK machine. Gains 200 attack for each of your opponent's monsters, or each of your opponent's cards, my bad. And it can attack everything, and it has piercing. So it's like a smaller conductor, but it can get big. Then we have 2 copies of Invoked Mekaba. In my opinion, probably the best one. The best invoked fusion monster. Basically, it provides a negate. It's a big body. And basically, it's the easiest one to make, so I run 2 of it. Then we got the 1 copy of Thousand Eyes Restrict for our instant fusion. For our Link monsters, we run the 1 copy of Almirage. Basically, it's basically our play starter. After we normal summon the Alistair, link it off into Almirage, and then we can go from there and make our boards. 1 copy of Gravity Controller. Basically, with Gravity Controller, if you have to make the Thousand Eyes Restrict in the extra monster zone, you use the Gravity Controller to send it to the grave. You use the Thousand Eyes to make the Gravity Controller, and it's basically a compulse if the controller battles an extra monster zone monster. Then we got 1 copy of Mad Invoker. Basically, what this does is if a fusion monster is summoned to a zone he points to, like if it's fusion summoned, you get to discard a card and then add Invocation straight from your deck. It allows you to add Book of the Law if you want to run it. if you want to run Book of the Law, I would recommend possibly taking out the gravity controller. That's just my preference, though. But it also counts as Alistair the Invoker while on field or in graveyard, so that extra utility is nice as well. Then you have the Copy of Cross Sheep. This card a lot of people are talking about is absolutely insane. I like it because if you fusion summon while it's on board and you had to use your Thousand Eyes Restrict, it basically can revive your Thousand Eyes Restrict and allow you to take in another opponent's monster. And then you use the Thousand Eyes Restrict to link off into something else. One copy of Lambda for going first. Basically what this card does is it allows you to activate Gamma from your hand while you control monsters. That's its main utility in this deck. Nightmare Phoenix for utility. Nightmare Unicorn because spinning things back to the deck is actually pretty powerful. The BLS link because it basically, again, it helps you get rid of things that cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. Then the last card is the one Borrelsword Dragon to round off our extra deck and concluding our deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, share this video with a friend. Without further ado, guys, end my turn.